Okay. Okay. I think we are live. Yes. So, welcome to the channel, everyone. And as a guest today, we have back with us Ali Gilbert. Welcome, Ali.
Thank you for having me back. I love being on here.
It's always a pleasure. So, let's talk about your specialty. We're getting men and women as well fit over 40. We're getting back in shape. And by doing that, we'll get them healthier and have them live longer as well. So it's all for health and longevity and anti-aging. We're not just working out to make bodybuilders of them. Is that right?
No, though, if they want to look like that, that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that either. I remember because now I'll be 41 in October. I remember when 40 used to seem so old. Like when we're in our 20s, we'd be like, yeah, that person's like 40. And I apologize to anyone I ever said that to.
Yeah.
My
kids still think we're crazy old, really, at 40.
Yeah.
So, I'm 48 now. So when I'll be 50, it will be impossible. They'll put me in a care home, probably.
I know 50 seems so young still too, where it used to seem, a lot older. Every year you get older, you feel either like, oh, all right, I'm not as mature as I thought I'd be now, or, keeping yourself healthy actually helps you to feel younger and look younger too.
Yeah, sure. That's why we're doing this. So, okay, so let's talk about people 40 and older that want to get in shape, want to get fit. They might tell you or me, so how do you manage looking like that? Because most of the people our age, they look like shit. 60 to 70% is overweight. So, a lot of work to be done. So one of the most common questions I get when people want to start lifting weights is how many sets should I do? Should I do 5, 10, 15? What is best at my age? And especially if you're over 40. So what's your answer to that, Ali?
So obviously, it's very contextual depending on where the person's coming from. So I never like to give an answer, it depends, and then not actually explain what it depends on. So traditionally, if I have somebody who has strength trained before, so let's say, I would say like a lot of the times it's somebody who has a history of going to the gym, but maybe they fell out of the routine, they got busy professionally. 40 is kind of like, you're in a routine with children and your business and everything like that, and your priorities kind of shift. And so dealing with a lot of the information out there, it can be really overwhelming for them to be like, oh my God, where do I start? Because when I used to go to the gym before I had kids and a successful job or whatever, they would go 5-6 days a week. That would be kind of like number one priority. And now with things shifting, maybe we have to modify that a little bit, but also respect the fact that maybe they have not been in the gym for a while. So you don't want to go to the gym and beat yourself to, into oblivion to where you don't want to go back. So I would say the best start for someone would be a total body workout and not worry about hitting certain body parts. Why don't we just focus on 2 to 3 days a week instead of, oh my gosh, 5 days, what body parts, how many sets, what do I do? Let's start with 2 to 3 sets of something that hits everything 3 times a week, and do a push, a pull, a hinge, a press, get in, get out. There you go. Because most people don't want to spend 3 hours in the gym, and most people want to get an effective workout and feel like they did something. And you can absolutely do that in 45 to 60 minutes with a total body workout. And then you hit everything 3 days a week. That's a really good start. And then the other days, because if you have kids or if you have a busy life, you might not hit your Monday, Wednesday, Friday workout. So you may have to shift those days around. So leave the other days of the week for that, and leave the other days of the week for going for a walk or doing, some cooking and prioritizing getting your meals and stuff like that. So when it comes to sets and reps, I would say again, contextual, but if we're going with someone who has not been in the gym for a while, I would say start higher rep, because that will help mitigate them trying to go too heavy too soon, which can end up bad. And let's say 15 to 20 reps, 2 to 3 sets. Start there. It doesn't mean you're going to be there for a year. It doesn't mean anything more than let's just start somewhere. So I usually start people with higher reps, total body workouts, especially if it's a budgeting for time type of thing. And it's 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay, great. And probably you're not getting them to do very technical movements like squats or deadlifts. That's a bit too difficult to start with, I guess.
It would be a variation of them. So I would not say, hey, let's deadlift off the floor day number one. I did a post in the group talking about the deadlift. And I said, one of the prerequisites to deadlift off the floor is to be able to touch your toes. If you haven't been able to touch your toes in I don't know how many years, I would not go trying to lift something heavy off the floor, which is beyond a range you naturally have just bending over with no weight. So let's start where you actually have the range. Maybe we start with a Romanian deadlift, which is just going below the knees, or a trap bar deadlift where the handles are a little bit higher. Because I'm 5'3", and somebody who is over 6 feet, to say that the both of us should be deadlifting from the same height is a little bit weird, right? So the plates don't change their diameter necessarily. So unless, again, if you're a 25-pound plate or lower, but 45-pound plates, they don't get any bigger. So that height is going to be the same for me as it is for you, as it is for somebody who's 6'7". So let's start where the person naturally has range and then go from there. And then as far as squatting, squatting is not something that someone has to do a back squat. They don't have to do a certain type, but I would say squatting has a lot of great benefits. Maybe we start with a goblet squat, or maybe we start with, holding dumbbells by your sides with the feet elevated, or a type of front squat. So it doesn't have to be a barbell back squat right away. Because also people don't have the best history with deadlifting off the floor or squatting with a barbell. So subconsciously, they may think, oh my God, I'm going to hurt myself again. So let's start somewhere where we feel confident and safe, and then we can progress. Just like in the future, we can progress to drop sets. We can progress to rest pause sets and bands and chains and all those things. You got to earn that. Let's start basic, nail the basics, which a lot of people don't do. And then we can progress from there.
Okay, great. Something I get across very often as well with people starting, sometimes 40, 50 or older, is motivation. Because they say, yeah, resistance training is nothing for me. I hate doing it. I'd rather go jogging. So how do you motivate people to work out with weights if they don't really want to do it?
That is really tough. And, in my younger years as a fitness professional, oh my God, we used to roll our eyes if people wanted to do like Zumba classes or CrossFit class, stuff like that. I've gotten away from being so dramatic about that, because honestly, it is so rare to get people to really stick to a plan for the rest of their life nowadays. As you mentioned, most people are overweight. Whatever exercise they do enjoy, let's encourage them to stick to that. But then let's add in some weight training to that. So instead of saying, it's like dieting, right? People think they have to give up everything. So instead of taking away your Dunkin' Donuts egg white wrap, why don't we add a vegetable to that? So instead of taking away your Orange Theory or whatever that I may not necessarily be favorable for, but the fact that it gets you out of the house, it gets you excited. Great. Let's add some intelligent strength training to that and watch how your classes become even more enjoyable due to the resistance training. And then maybe that will help motivate somebody even more, because then they'll get the aesthetic benefits, they'll get the physical benefits and stuff like that. But it is really hard. I mean, someone who's not motivated at all, like it's trying to find what lights that fire. So usually if they're not motivated, that will come kind of later in the program, because everyone who hires me as a coach, like they have that motivation right away. That will fade. Pretty much most people, it does fade. So it's continuously providing the accountability and the feedback as to why they're progressing the way they are, because most people associate their progress with the scale or with the mirror. And there are so many other ways to, look at progress. Like if you didn't get a chin up ever in your life and now you can bang out too, like that's pretty fucking cool. People don't realize that. Or like you feel strong in the gym, or you bench more than the guy next to you at the gym. Like that's really cool. So, looking at those little wins and realizing that, hey, I'm actually doing pretty cool, instead of thinking, oh man, I got to go lift again. Oh, I hate this. Look forward to the other things you enjoy in life. And then maybe you might start enjoying this. At least I hope.
Yeah, great tips. Yeah, very difficult. A lot of people. I've seen older women in the gym, 40s, 50s, and they're just doing it because their boyfriend or their husband says, come lift with me, and they say, oh, it's nothing for me, and they're just grinding away stuff. And sometimes it looks so hard if people don't like doing it. So
I know.
must be terrible. Must be terrible for them.
Yeah, because like people are like, oh, I'm just here because like my doctor says I have to lift, or I really hate the gym. And sometimes they really do hate it, but also it's like maybe when they were younger, someone made fun of them in the gym or something, and it has to do with that, and then you can dig even further as to what is the root cause to why you hate it. Because all right, if we brought the gym to your house and then you built a home gym, would that resolve your hatred? Like, what did the dumbbells do to you that you really hate it so much?
Yeah,
it is hard. Yes, it's hard, but that can't really be the only reason.
People like us that have been working out for a long time, we all know that working out is very good for our mental health. And sometimes we try to convince other people to start lifting weights or to do resistance training, that it would be good for their mental health. But sometimes I've heard people say, I can't work out because I'm just feeling down. So the question is, how would you motivate someone to start working out if they say they're feeling depressed?
I would say, first of all, I think a lot of people think even yourself, people who are in shape or do it for a living, we wake up, we're so motivated, we want to go to the gym. It is so not like that. Like even today, so it's like past 2 p.m. here in Florida. I didn't think I had a training session today, but I fucked up my schedule. The last thing I want to do at like 3, 4 p.m. on a Sunday is go to the gym. But you know what? It's on my schedule. I got to get it done. I'm going to do it. And we more often than not don't really feel like doing it, but it's knowing what you're going to feel like after. It's the feeling of accomplishment. It's a feeling of doing something for yourself that nobody else can do for you. And if you're really dragging, let's ask why. So is somebody just not motivated to go because they don't feel like it? Start with 10 minutes. Get there, do one set. If you really feel awful, go home. Most of the time, people are like, you know what? I start to feel better. If you feel extremely sore and you've had like all the caffeine and nothing is waking you up because you've been training all week, maybe you need a rest day. So it's differentiating, like, why are we not motivated? But if we're going with like, I just don't feel like it, then I get it. Totally get it. If you just start, which is usually the hardest part, or just getting to the gym, get your favorite pre-workout drink, go to the gas station, find the one that is like super unique, get there, start. And then if you really don't want to be there, at least you tried, and then go home. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, as you said, you just have to put it in your schedule on certain moments in the week, like Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, whatever, on a certain hour. And it's on the schedule. Well, I don't like going to do it. I don't feel like doing it now, but it's on the schedule. I'll just do it. And once you start, after 10 minutes, you're happy. You're into the mood, and afterwards you're happy you've done it, and you can be proud of yourself, and you see the results. So it's just something you do, and that's just part of your routine, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
A question I've heard really often as well. Is it harder to build muscle past 40 than before?
um, I would say yes. So like as we age, we start to lose muscle mass around, like 1% during these decades as we approach 50, 60. So it's one of the harder things to convince somebody, I want you to put on as much muscle as possible so that in your elder years, you are as resilient as you can be towards injury and disease and stuff like that. Because anybody who works with people who are in their final years will tell you that muscle wasting is a thing, and not being able to get around and walk and all that stuff like is heartbreaking. So yes, we are definitely more prone to that. That is why we have to eat more protein as we get older to help rectify or mitigate any muscle loss. And the more strength training that we can do, the better our bone density is going to be. So it is so crucial to continue lifting. I mean, as you said, like we were talking earlier, anybody who is like, if you look at somebody from your high school class or even college, you probably look a little different than they do. They're more likely to have issues as they get older, just being mobile. Like you don't want to have to take the elevator because you have to. You want to take it because you're being lazy and you think you deserve to. So not because your body's like, yeah, no, I can't do the stairs. So absolutely. Plus muscle, like having muscle on your body, I think instantly gains respect. That is the type of reaction most people will give. Respect. Obviously, there's envy and jealousy and other negative things. But I think if somebody carries muscle on their frame, that person is disciplined. They work hard. They have an appreciable work ethic. And if you carry that into your 50s, 60s, 70s, like I would say that person might be more dependable and trustworthy and stuff like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is generally what I think that the reaction to anybody who has muscle is.
Yeah. I've been in Africa a few times now the last year, and wherever me and my pal, we walk there in the street, and we're both rather muscular. So people always are shouting at us, "Hey, military!" They just shouting military. And we say no.
It is funny because like I think this was maybe, I don't know, over a month ago or so. I made one of those tweet posts like where it's just text, but it's usually a controversial statement. And it said, our society is so unhealthy these days that anybody with visible muscle, you automatically are, accused of being on steroids. And I found that really interesting because it's so off-putting to people if you have muscle and then you're around people who don't. They get uncomfortable, but it's almost like, do you compete? Do you do CrossFit? And it's just like, you can't just work out and be healthy. And I always take it as a compliment when people say that, like in the airport or whatever, they're just like, oh, they recognize something is different. And I almost am like, okay, I understand that this is everyone's choice, but I want more for them. I would love for people to want the same thing. You don't have to want to look the way that you and I want to look. But I think having muscle tone was a lot more, not popular, but normal 30 years ago than it is, nowadays. And so it's an anomaly now in a lot of different areas of the world. So it's always interesting. And I said to my husband the other day, I was like, even 5 years ago, if someone said like, yeah, I got to track my steps today, you would find that statement extremely bizarre. But it's so necessary now because we just don't move and lifting and all these things it's just not the same type of culture that it once was. So it's weird.
Yeah. Most people towards me, for example, are paying me compliments. If they want to talk about we are looking muscular, in most cases, patients or even random people in the street, they're just giving compliments. If I go to a shop and they don't know me, they say, "Oh, sportsman," something like that. In most cases, it's friendly. But the silly thing is, when I sit down with a lot of doctors that look very unhealthy, 99% of them, they never give me a compliment. They're even going to talk to me and say, oh, that's a lot of muscle. This can't be healthy, right? I said, well, I don't even go into discussions with them. It's mostly doctors that
Really?
negatively about being muscular. This can't be healthy. So much muscle. This can't be healthy. But I don't dare talk about their belly. So I'm not going into discussions with that kind of people.
Yeah.
90% of doctors look terrible physically. So I cannot understand how they can give advice towards their patients if they're looking like that. But
yeah, it's one of those things, like, you know, a lot of fitness professionals get penalized if they don't look the part, but medical professionals don't.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that, like, you know, if a woman has a baby or something, or if somebody's recovering from something that, you know, made them gain a lot of weight, I think that's a little bit different than letting yourself go just because you were lazy or something, which it's almost like we can't even say the truth anymore. But like I am very cognizant of that. Like, we are walking billboards for our business. So if you don't look the way that you're preaching, I just find that a little bit weird. That's all. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
More than weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the live viewers now, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat box. We'll come to them after the questions I've prepared for Ali. So yeah, I know there are more than 2 genders nowadays, 47 I heard lately, but are there big differences for workout splits or resistance training programs for women versus men?
So there's people that will argue yes. So I don't train as many women as I used to. So I will say that the few women that I do train, women will probably have better pain tolerance and endurance than guys. And that just has to do with physiological makeup. Men are stronger than women pound for pound, but women pound for pound have better endurance. That's just how it is. We have to give childbirth. I guess it's very painful. I've never done it. But as far as, well, you're a female, so I'm going to give you this specific exercise instead, I would say the only time you have to be aware of that is if a woman has breast implants and it's a chest related exercise, depending on where the implant is placed, and it could pull it in a direction that maybe aesthetically might not work so well, or it could be uncomfortable. However, like I have a client, she's training for a bikini show now, and she has implants. Anything chest supported, they make like these pads that actually like put you in a position where you're not like squashing your boobs. So I was like, it's pretty cool. But I know my program from my coach, there's no exercises that are like female specific. When I do my programming for my clients, of the 3 girls that I have, the programs are not necessarily different than what I program for my guys. There is, and there has been chatter over the course of the years regarding training around the menstrual cycle and being sensitive to certain hormonal states. Again, anyone who's on birth control or on hormone replacement, that kind of makes that an obsolete consideration. So I think in regards to actual physiology, not really. Maybe if someone's enhanced with implants in a certain place, sure, I would definitely take that in consideration. But overall, I wouldn't train people any different.
Okay, that's fair.
For myself.
If people have to start getting in shape from scratch, and you have to have them do resistance training, take care of their diet, their sleep, maybe optimize their hormones. Are you going to do that step by step? Aren't you afraid that doing it all at once will be a bit too much? And if you're doing it step by step, how do you go about that?
I like that question, because there are people who need all of that, but don't know they need all of that. So if you did all of that at once, they would be like, yo, super overwhelmed. It's definitely a step-by-step. And I will say, training a lot of men, I have a lot of guys who are on TRT, and I have a smaller amount, but I have an amount of guys who are considering it. But with men, as you know, you're a man, the competition and the competitiveness, they want to try to win against their natural decline of testosterone. So fine, that's fine. If they don't want to go on TRT, even though I know that maybe they are a great candidate for it and it's inevitable, I think they still feel like they want to do everything they can naturally, which is fine because, again, as we've mentioned, those are things you're going to have to do anyway if you go on TRT. So if we're not going to start with hormone optimization, then let's look at what the lowest hanging fruit is and what the biggest rocks are. So with guys, usually women get pegged with not eating enough. All my guys, I mean, the average lately has been like 18 to 1900 calories. I don't know why. It reminds me of like the women's 1200, like wherever that came from. So like all these guys lately are eating between 18, 1900. So I'm like, okay, that's okay. Like if you're getting into the weeds of dieting, but we don't want to live there. So it's always adding calories back in. So it's looking at what are they doing activity wise and why are they not eating enough to support that? So it's actually adding food, usually taking training away temporarily, but this also will improve their sleep because usually sleep is kind of like an ego thing still, like, oh, I don't need to sleep that much. I feel good on 4 hours and blah, blah, blah. When that actually could be the one thing holding somebody back, but it's so boring to talk about. You can't take a pill to rectify it. Like you literally have to work on sleep hygiene, just like you have to work on your teeth hygiene and floss and brush and all these things. Like, yes, it's annoying. I get it. So it's all at once in regards to sleep, training, and food, because those three things are going to complement each other. And then hormone optimization is kind of like the icing on the cake if that's not something they want to go to right away. So if we can fix somebody's sleep, usually they don't sleep because they're not eating enough and they're always stressed. And then they're scrolling their phone because they can't decompress, but they use training as an outlet to de-stress. Yeah, it's adding more stress. All right, cool. You're not getting results doing what you're doing. So you really have no other choice than to add more food, which is going to help you recover and it's going to help you feel better. And then that will make the training more enjoyable. And then the results will come. And then they'll realize it can improve testosterone levels maybe a little bit, but it might not stay there unless you're an elite performer and you have coaches around you all the time. That's a different story. But if we're talking about, your average Joe, if they don't want TRT, then we do everything naturally first, all those things, and then we consider it. Now, if they are open to it, then testosterone, as you know, the first thing it's going to help with is augmenting recovery. So that will make training a little bit more tolerable. I wouldn't say easier, but tolerable, and they'll sleep better. They'll utilize the calories that they are eating. And then we can add food as well, but it can be overwhelming to change everything. And as a coach, I like to get data on clients. And so I'll take as much as they'll give me, but it's very overwhelming. If I was like, hey, Steve, I want you to do your blood pressure. I want you to do your waking body temperature, your HRV, your heart rate. And you're like, yo, Ali, I just want to like get in shape. I'm not going to come at you with all of that, but we might ease you into that. So I think most people, they want kind of like the big rocks, and then we'll tackle that first. And then there are people who are like, I want to do everything possible that will give you the best opportunity to coach me. And then I'm like, great, here's the list of things I need from you. Let's get this done.
Yeah, great. Before we continue, Ali, let's talk about the Silverback Summit.
Oh, yes.
When is it? Wait. What is it? Who's coming? And why should you be interested as a viewer?
All right. So like first of all, I love throwing parties. Not that I like do that often. I'm not a partier anymore, but like big events. So I always have attended fitness conferences and spoken at fitness conferences and even medical conferences. And I'm like, no one pairs the two. Medical conferences, you know, firsthand, super boring, super stuffy, like, ugh. And then fitness conferences can be really fun, but no one really talks about it for the general population. So it's always for fitness professionals. What about the guys who want to really understand what their true health risks are? So the guys who have the GPs, but they're in the group, so they talk to our guys, but they might have a specialist, but they're still getting conflicting information and they don't really know the truth. They need to just hear it, but also at the same time, the nutrition stuff that they hear that's conflicting, the fitness stuff. Well, let's put that all in one place. And that's what the Silverback Summit is. That's what I wanted to create, is they can learn everything. Because even with online, you know, coaching and everything, the way that people evolved with fitness stuff, we came into this pendulum of like CrossFit and Orange Theory and all these high intensity things. There's a lot of guys that don't have like the meathead strength training background that you and I have, that they have never learned to actually properly deadlift or squat or how to do certain exercises, but they're not going to say that. And I don't blame them. It's embarrassing to admit like, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. Well, I'm going to show you how to do it, as is my friend Brian Cron, who's a fitness professional out of Canada. We're going to show you guys how to do it the right way. And also variations in case you have a bad shoulder, which most guys will do, and they'll bench anyway. All right, cool. Let's work around that, you know, stuff like that. This is how you should eat if you're doing XYZ. And then we have Gil, we've got Justin, we've got Jordan, we've got Dave Lee, all coming to speak. Hello, myself. Oh yeah, myself. And a cardiologist, Dr. Michael Twyman, who has been on the Mark Bell podcast, on Ben Pekulski, like, you know, a cardiologist who is not like, here's a statin if your cholesterol is 200. Somebody who understands training and the true relationship between erectile dysfunction and atherosclerosis. I said it really quick, but all that stuff. So it's 3 days in South Florida at the end of October, and it's going to be some lectures, some social events, some fun surprise stuff that I can't say. But basically I wanted it to be a fun experience for guys. And so anybody who wants to come, there's still tickets available, and we've got a hotel rate, and I'm trying to keep the group nice and small. And then we just hang out. I mean, we've all been in the Facebook group for how many years? We've never met each other. Like, we should also have a live event, and this is the live event. And it's unfortunate that some people, like, you can't make it for stupid reasons, but hey, those who can make it absolutely should. And I literally, I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't know where else somebody's going to get all these answers and solutions in one place. Plus I have so many sponsors and so much free shit. Like, I'm going to have to give it away.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So anyone viewing this live or later on, make sure to use the link in the description of this video and get your tickets and get over to Florida by the end of October. Okay, so that was a little in between. So let's continue the questions I prepared. Okay. Can a 40-year-old increase hormonal output through training?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody can. It's more of an acute response though. So the hormonal output that comes from training comes from the type of lift that somebody performs. So hormones act like people, where they're very social. And if they act alone, they're not so much fun. So lifts like deadlifts and squats and bench press, things that require a lot of muscle, also known as compound lifts, those are going to yield the biggest testosterone release. That comes also in conjunction with cortisol and epinephrine and IGF-1 and stuff like that. The exercises that are more like single joint, like bicep curls and tricep stuff, and a little bit more higher rep, that has more growth hormone that yields more of a pump, and also cortisol and adrenaline. But the thing is, it doesn't last the rest of your life. So if only it did, then we'd all be in a great position and none of us would need HRT. However, the more that we make these hormones get released through this anabolic signaling, then the healthier the muscle tissue, the more that we build muscle. And then the more our body's like, oh, I like hormones. I'm going to make this a healthier hormonal environment. But that's not to say we can't utilize hormone replacement in conjunction with it. But if you actually look at studies, like, yes, you can get an acute hormone release, but it's not necessarily going to last. And a lot of people will say, well, you don't want to elevate cortisol, and you do want to elevate cortisol when you're training, but we want it to come down after training. And that's why elevating cortisol with all these other hormones makes it very potent. It's like a soup that burns fat and, maintains muscle. But then afterwards, we want we want cortisol to come down. So that's kind of like what you can do lifting wise. So you're not going to get that massive of a testosterone release if you're doing like circuit style stuff or single joint work. You have to do like those heavy, grindy, sucky sets.
Yeah. Taylor 704, thank you for the super chat. I have one question in the chat box for you, Ali. I'm 1 month on cream, testosterone cream, that is, I guess, at 24% body fat. I want to get to 15% and just switch to an 8x8 from a strength 5x5. Do you think this is a good move?
He changed to an 8x8 what? What did he say he changed to? 8x8 what?
That's a workout split, I guess.
Oh, like a Gironda 8x8 protocol. So, and then he switched from that to what?
He switched to that from a strength 5x5.
Oh, so like a 5x5 is more of like a strength approach. The 8x8 is actually like, it's almost like weightlifting cardio because for somebody who's not familiar with that approach, so it's 8 sets of 8 reps, but you have about 30 seconds in between, and it's more of like an 8 to 10 repetition max. So the first like couple sets, you're like, all right, whatever. But then all of a sudden you're like, damn, I'm smoked. So you can add it like an appreciable amount of size in a short amount of time, but also drop body fat in a pretty appreciable amount of time. Yes, that will help, but getting his diet dialed in is going to be the most important thing, especially if he's at 24% body fat. So for a man who is over 20%, I would say you want to look at using a lower carb approach with a high protein, moderate fat. That is what I do with most of my guys, because again, you have a good amount of stored energy on your body you haven't tapped into. So we don't need to add more energy sources to speak. So let your body use the fat that it has on it. And then as you get leaner, we can start adding carbs back.
Yeah. Okay. And will being on the testosterone cream on the TRT, it's 1 month, he says, make a big difference?
I mean, it's going to help him recover for sure. So I think still a lot of the times men will think if they go on TRT of any form, that it's going to flip a switch with their body composition to this dramatic change. And that will come if you still pay attention to the diet and the training, and then rinse and repeat, over and over for years, just like all of us have.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, though.
Yeah, he says, thank you. I'm right on track then. Yeah.
Good.
You are. Talking about diets, what kind of diet would you put someone on that is over 40 and not fit at all?
So not fit at all, I would probably go with the same approach. Protein is number one of what most people don't eat enough of. And then especially as we get older, we do need more protein so that we don't lose as much muscle mass. So if you're not fit at all, I would say, let's start with something really basic and easy, like walking. And we can start to mobilize body fat or stored energy and take that lower carb approach, because likely your body is not utilizing what you're eating very efficiently. And so by taking carbs a little bit lower, it takes that glucose load off your cells and gives it a break to use the fat that you have on your body, get that pushed through and used efficiently. I'm trying to explain this easily. And then protein being high will keep somebody satiated and helps keep cravings from creeping in, because people get full really quick. If you give someone 5 chicken breasts and you're like, I need you to finish that, it's a lot harder than 5 donuts. I can crush 5 donuts in like an hour, probably. I love donuts, but 5 chicken breasts is a lot of work. And protein has a very high thermic effect. So it requires your body a lot of energy to digest it. So you can burn calories eating protein. I wish I could say the same for donuts, but it does not happen that way. So let's take advantage of that and use protein as that type of leverage so that we can take advantage of the fact that we're going to be fuller and burn calories. And then in turn, you actually start eating less.
And what calorie deficit are you starting with there?
I start someone at like 15%, 10 to 15%, very low. Problem is many people will go like 40, and you're going to get a dramatic change, but it might be unnecessary. So if you can eat more and still see results, why wouldn't you? Because then over time, you're just going to have to eat less and less and less. So I would say make smaller changes and give it time is the best thing. Usually, oh my God, 5 days, I haven't lost 6 pounds. Like, give it time.
Yeah, better not make it too hard, that diet, bit by bit, there's no hurry. What has the biggest impact on longevity and quality of life over 40? Is that the diet, the resistance training, maybe certain supplements, hormonal optimization, or do you really have to do it all?
You really have to do it all. But I mean, if I could pick one, oh man, I really think diet and resistance training like are tied. I mean, because obviously if you eat crap, you're more prone to disease and inflammation and all of that. And if you don't have any muscle mass, it actually increases your predisposition to that. So like muscle really does so many good things for you, but also it's like, if you're not going to eat well, you're going to do yourself such a disservice. So at least do those two if you really don't want to do it all.
I still think diet is the most important, because you have, certain people, they're really, really, really lean. They have no muscle at all. They're just like this. They're 70 or 80 years old. They're still very healthy, but they pay a lot of attention to their diets their whole life. They've never worked out, but even if they don't have muscle, with a good diet, I think they can outlive everyone.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's more my personal bias of wanting people to have muscle mass, but yeah, you're totally right. Like even if they can do one thing by increasing protein, that will take them a long way too, and help them at least not lose more muscle if they're, older.
I have a couple of patients, they're both end 80s. I think one of them, I think the woman is 92, something like that. They're a great couple, very friendly. They're both very, very lean, and they look amazing, and they're always come on foot, and they go walking every day. And I've already asked them once, so what do you do to grow old like that, looking like that, so good in comparison to all the others? And they both said, well, we're only eating once a day. I said, eating once a day? Yeah, we just take breakfast and that's it. We have a very big breakfast and that's it. We don't eat for the rest of the day. And they say that we've doing that for 40 years. So that's
wow. I mean, shit. I don't know if I could do that. I'd have to do dinner. I couldn't eat breakfast and I'd be starving all day.
Yeah, he called it we were having a German breakfast, he said. I have to look into what a German breakfast is. I have no idea, but
all I know is I know German pancakes are like these massive pancakes that they make in these like huge skillets. So that would probably keep you full all day.
Yeah. Well, they look very healthy. They're 88 and 92, I guess. So
that's awesome.
So
good for them.
Their secret, that's their diet, and they don't have muscle at all, but that's why I think diet is number one.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, totally got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we get a lot of these questions. How long do I have to diet for to get fit? Because I really enjoy eating. I don't want to diet too long.
Oh man. So when somebody asks to get fit, I need to understand what that means to them. So like on my personal intake forms for coaching clients, I say, upload a photo of somebody who has a physique that you would like to look like, or if it's a past photo of them. And this is not to give the illusion that they can look like someone else. It's for me. If you said to me, Ali, I want to get shredded, I kind of have an understanding of what you mean by that. If somebody else says shredded, they might mean they just want a 2-pack. So I have to understand what that means, because to get a 12-pack is going to be a little bit more work than like a 2-pack. So how long do they have to diet for? Where are we starting with body fat? So let's assume someone's over 20% body fat. I still will never give a timeline as to how long it would take someone, but it's going to always be longer than you think it is. So if you think it's going to be 6 months, it's probably going to be a year. And I will say the slower you go, the better chance that you have to keep it off forever. There is a reason why people do these transformations that are 3 weeks long. They drop a lot of weight, but then they repeat that same transformation multiple times a year because it keeps coming back plus interest. So you can actually do it the right way and keep it off forever. And then it's just a cycle for the rest of your life of higher calories and lower calories. It doesn't mean you have to diet the rest of your life. I don't think anybody should. I think we should spend the majority of a year not dieting and utilize time dieting to make efficient and effective changes. But again, it depends where someone's starting from and everything. But I would say it's always going to be longer than what you want it to be and what you think it will be.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I have one more question, and then I'll take another question from the chat box. Do you have older people, 40 plus, start on protein shakes as well to make it easier for them to have extra protein during the day?
I do. And it's funny because a lot of people think protein shakes are bad for some reason. And I think that came from the 90s when like Slim Fast kind of exploded, and the understanding that we're doing 1 or 2 shakes a day. We're not doing all shakes all day. But in more cases than not, it's necessary in order to hit their protein goals. And you can absolutely make a shake a meal, because you can add spinach to it and you don't even taste it. And you can add like all sorts of stuff to it that can actually make it more nutrient dense. And then if somebody has digestive issues, maybe they're not used to eating this much protein or this much food, it's already pre-digested when they're drinking a shake. So that can help alleviate some of those concerns as well. But I would say, yeah, absolutely. And especially if you live in a climate like I do in Florida, in the summertime, it's nice to have something cold. So.
Yeah. We have another question. He is 45 years old, and he says, I'm trying to get to 10% body fat from 13. What's the lowest daily calories you recommend for a 5'5", 145 pounds person?
So I have a client who is just about that same body composition. So I get a lot of guys who want to get sub 10% or sub 15. Rarely do I get really overweight guys. So this is something I don't talk about a lot, because the fitness industry and the diet industry is in this culture of, if you eat too little, then you're going to ruin your metabolism for the rest of your life and be damaged. Fine. I understand that. There are a lot of guys, though, I have sub 2000 calories and even in the 18 to 1700 range to get next level lean. However, those guys came to me eating that. We spent a lot of time building their calories back up to a point where now they can diet on 1800. They're not maintaining on 1800. And it is like flipping a switch. There comes a point to where when you diet hard to get that type of leanness, you're going to suffer. You have to understand the effects of that. You may be experiencing insomnia, night sweats, your HRV is going to go through the floor, your resting heart rate is going to increase, you're going to have zero sex drive pretty much, you're going to feel as awful as you've ever felt. Like if you ask anyone who goes on stage at a bodybuilding show, they don't feel good, you know? So when you're that lean, it's not a fun state. And then it's monitoring those metrics, body temperature, stuff like that. And then knowing how far to take it to the point then maybe you have to come out of it for a little bit. And I'm not talking a massive cheat meal. I'm not talking 2-week refeeds. I'm talking until your metrics stabilize a little bit more. And then we go back and cut a little more. But it's always matching that to the training. And you have to make sure the type of training that you're doing, especially when you're going down to those levels of leanness, it's not so much to really burn calories. It's to mitigate muscle loss, even if you're on anabolics. Because if you're on stuff, it's still very difficult to build muscle, but now you're fighting what your body does not want, which is to let go of body fat. So it's as far as what calories to go low, somebody of that stature could probably go a lot lower than you would want to ever publicly say. Because if you say, hey, I'm at 1600, people will lose their mind and they'll say that's too low, but they have no context and they have no idea how long you're staying there. But you have to do what it takes to get to where you want to be. Doesn't mean you're going to live there. So it bothers me when people comment on other people's diets saying that they're too low when they have no idea how long they've been there, what their physical metrics look like. This is not healthy. Dieting is controlled starvation. You're supposed to feel a certain way. That does not mean that you're ruining the rest of your life, but it's doing it in a way that you know what, you're not going to be there forever. And you can actually stay at a lower body fat percentage if you know how to do it correctly. So I would say he can absolutely go pretty low, but monitoring, again, all those metrics, which they're going to go sideways. He's not going to feel great, but it's okay to go low. I'm giving you permission. I think that's what he's asking is basically, can I go low calorie? I would just not tell anybody. Just be like, yeah, I'm doing what my coach says for me, even if you don't have a coach, or you can hire me, but whatever. I just wouldn't disclose it because people literally get weird about that, you know?
Mm. There's probably a big difference between what you recommend to do for a show or a photo shoot or whatever, or to stay on indefinitely.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Like the guys that I have who are getting to close to single digit body fat, I don't keep them at these lower levels the whole year. I mean, oh my God. But people think that like the photo shoot lean and stage lean, like, oh, you look awesome, you can maintain that the rest of the year. No, like you can absolutely maintain low body fat, but it's also learning to live a certain lifestyle. There is a lot of sacrifice when you want to live single digit or even a little bit higher above that. So it's a lot different lifestyle. It's adopting, a real prioritization with your sleep and your health and all of that, because it's not healthy to get to crazy levels of leanness. So it's just understanding and respecting that too.
Just to have your thoughts, what's your opinion about the percentage of body fat for a man that can still be healthy to maintain year round? Is that 12, 15%?
I think between 12 and 15 is absolutely doable. There are people that are going to get annoyed by that statement. When I came out with that article on T Nation, people thought I was saying you had to be 15% before going on TRT. I never said that. I mean, if you know me, I'm like the most pro TRT fitness professional there is. It was more saying that you're just going to be better off in a very resilient, healthy state for the rest of your life if you go on TRT. So I think getting between 12 and 15%, I have seen it. I have done it with guys. I think it's absolutely doable, but I think people need to see this as more of a lifestyle change and not something they do for a very short period of time, and then they can go back to bad habits if they had them in the first place. Because the start and end point of a diet, that's for something like a photo shoot. There is no start and end point to your healthy lifestyle. So people who live in the 12 to 15% body fat range for a guy, or even for women 15 to 20, they are likely doing things that others won't do or refuse to do because they look a certain way and they live a certain way.
Okay, so I guess we're through all the questions I prepared and that were in the chat box. We're also at, it's 9 p.m. here, 3 p.m. for you, so it's 1 hour in. So anything else you wanted to share with us, Ali, before we say goodbye to the viewers?
No, I don't want to say goodbye. I should add, like, with the male-female thing, because I know that this would probably come up. Obviously, if a woman is pregnant or postpartum, that does change things. That is not my wheelhouse. Like, if somebody comes to me pregnant or whatever, I'm like, I refer out. That would be the obvious difference that I hope I would think people would assume. But again, you never know. People come at me and stuff. But other than that, like, it's always a pleasure to come on. I have so much fun. I hope you guys, enjoyed this video. I hope you guys can come to Silverback. Use that link that Steven posts on the video, because it'll still be the early bird pricing. Shh, don't tell anybody. And I hope to meet you guys in person. And thank you for having me.
Okay, you're very welcome. Once again, thank you for all the great insights, Ali. Talk to you next time.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks, Steven.
Bye-bye.